Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way.
You know how last week when we were talking about the trailer for Nine Queens, I brought up the fact that there are these cases where trailers, American trailers, cut for foreign language films. It's like 80% of them pretend they're not foreign. You just have an English narrator and you never hear anybody talk. You just see a bunch of stuff happen, just like we saw last week.
Right. And then eventually movie guy speaks up.
Right, exactly. This week's trailer is a perfect example of the other 20% of the foreign language trailers because it's just all talking. It's all Spanish speaking and subtitles.
Okay, so does it work better for you or worse?
I don't think it's a problem of whether it's going to work, whether the trailer as a whole is going to work better or worse. I think it's a contextual thing. This is really a kind of a character piece. This is definitely a drama. It has some comedy and some romance in it, but for the crux of it really is a dramatic story. And I think that the trailer, because we're watching this trailer and hearing them talking, and we're just getting a sense of the story through them, I think that it works in relation to what they're bringing to the table here. I mean, it's a talking movie, whereas Nine Queens, you do have a lot of action stuff happening. So I don't know. I wonder if they could have cut a trailer for this without us hearing anybody talk.
Well, and when you think about the audience too, like an audience that's going to go see a movie like this, whether it's in Spanish or English, whether they understand the native language of the film or not, if they're going to sit and watch a movie like this, they're not going to be rewarded by a trailer that takes the whisper of action of, I don't know, pots flying across the kitchen or something like, and turn it into a fake trailer. I just don't think it would work. I think the audience that is going to attend a film like this is going to be okay, sitting back and reading the subtitles and getting the context of the film. And I think the trailer actually does a really nice job here. It paints a really sweet, kind of compressed picture of the overall story. I'm not moved that they give away many of the major plot points, the Alzheimer's and the heart attack we see a lot of those things, and I think the trailer does an admirable job of making me curious enough to see how all those pieces fit together to want to watch the whole movie. It's a really nice journey.
Yeah, I think it is. It's an interesting trailer in that it does give you that kind of abbreviated version of the story. You don't really get a sense that it's Raphael's story, maybe, but you do get a sense of this is a journey about trying to help Raphael's father kind of, have this marriage with Norma that he's always wanted in a church. And you get a sense of that in the Alzheimer's, and I think that works. The heart attack is the one element that I thought I was like almost surprised that it popped up at all, because they were doing such a good job of hiding it in the trailer. And then when they do show a heart attack moment, if it's that moment in the restaurant where he fakes the heart attack, where he like grabs his chest, and but then they cut to him like in the hospital. I'm like, that's an interesting way to cut a couple scenes.
Right, that was dirty
to make the heart attack, right?
I was not crazy about how they did that, because I think the actual, the payoff of the heart attack in the movie was a surprise enough. And I didn't watch I should have. I should make a habit of this, Andy. For movies that we haven't seen, I feel like I should watch the trailer before I watch the movie, because I watched the trailer afterward, and so that's not fair. But I feel like that was almost I don't know, a nod and a wink in the trailer that was unearned.
Well, it certainly hit at a point in the trailer where they're not emphasizing it. It's just a series of quick images of things happening that just it's kind of toward that last moment of the trailer. I guess you could say it's the trailer climax where it's building and you're getting a lot of quick cuts and it's just kind of intensifying the emotion in the hopes that you kind of get to the title at the end and you go, ooh, I want to go see that one.
Right.
So.
Well, and who are we kidding? We're going to see it for that hunky Darín.
Hola, papi. ¿Dónde vas?
A ver a mami. ¿Quieres venir? Hace como un año que no la ves, ¿eh?
No me quería ver cuando estaba sana, papi. Menos me va a querer ver ahora.
Escuchame, no es ella la que habla, es esa enfermedad.
Anduvimos no sé cuánto tiempo sin hablar.
Normita, mira quién vino.
Papito.
No llores, ¿sí?
Feliz cumpleaños.
¿Quién cumpleaños?
Vos, mami.
This is The Next Reel, everybody. My name is Pete Wright, and that over there is Andy Nelson.
Hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're continuing our series on the films of Argentinian actor Ricardo Darín with his work in the 2001 film Son of the Bride. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel.
And if you are enjoying this show and you're interested in supporting our ongoing work investigating great film, please consider a regular donation through our Patreon page. You'll get to join our back channel conversations on Slack, listen to the members-only weekend show, and get better chances of being a part of our Listener's Choice episodes. Just head over to patreon.com/thenextreel.
Andy, this was a really sweet movie. I don't know that it was one. I'm really tempted to say that this was a great movie experience, but right now I can just say it was a really, really good movie experience for me. I have some things that I turned off the film and I was downright puzzled by, and that things that just clearly didn't work. But overall, I think it asked some big questions in kind of a small package, and that through the talents of, I would say, our sort of four principal actors, I think they do a really good job of bringing those questions to light, and they kind of make you face some really tough things. I am one of those who's just, and I'm one of the few people who's terrified of Alzheimer's. Like it's one of those it's one of those horrible things that I think about probably way too much. That's one of my many anxieties. And this movie actually makes you look at Alzheimer's in a way that I think is it's dare I say refreshing. And my goodness, if I didn't end the film with a smile.
Yeah, it's. I really loved this movie. It just hit me in all the right ways. I mean, there are a few things in it that I was like, okay, I'm not quite sure that's working for me, but for the most part, it was spot on. I thought they did such a good job of capturing the honesty of these relationships and these people. And like you said, the way that they dealt with the Alzheimer's, it wasn't like an Alzheimer's movie. Like this is just, a hard thing to deal with, and everybody's dealing with it, the changes in their lives and all this. It's an element in the story, and it's something that people have been dealing with for a while, and they're kind of used to, and it's got its ups and its downs, and it can be frustrating. And even just like the way that Raphael dealt with it with his daughter when he was bringing her over to see her grandma, and just kind of like re-explaining it. She's like, Dad, I know. Yeah. Just a lot of this stuff. It's like people are, it's in this world that they are living, and it just becomes something that they work with. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I did too. I think there are too many stories. There are too many of these sort of gritty real-life relationship stories where an older couple, one member of the couple gets sick, cancer, Alzheimer's, whatever, and so it becomes the story of a breakup. You know what I mean? Like it's a story of the relationship, the struggles of the relationship, and how far the relationship has fallen, because the couple couldn't stay together through when the relationship got really hard, the in sickness part. And this story, I think, never makes you question the faith that certainly Nino, the husband, has in the relationship. And I found that immensely rewarding. It was the warm blanket of this film, that his entire mission was to give her something, even in her as her memories are being just ravaged by time and this disease. He wanted to give her something that she's always wanted, and that's the wedding in a big church. And this was his crusade to do that. And you watch him become a more active partner in their relationship and a more sort of vital human being as he starts planning this thing and as he starts facing the challenges of the logistics of the wedding. And I think that just I could have watched just scene after scene of Nino, figuring out how to plan a wedding. I almost didn't need the rest of it, which was also great. But it was just really, really satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, all of the little bits and pieces. I mean, Nino, just watching him when he is proposing to her in that scene that we have midway through. I mean, that just spoke to me of the honesty of the love that this couple had, and that he would never let go, despite the fact that his wife, it is a terrible disease, Alzheimer's, and she's kind of disappearing before his eyes. But he doesn't see that. He just sees this beauty that he's always loved. And it was so touching. And just watching him, just even dealing with her Alzheimer idiosyncrasies as he's kind of proposing to her, it was just so touching and sweet. I really loved watching all of those elements of him. And there's a line, and I can't remember exactly how far it is toward the end, but it's somewhere close to the end, where I think it's where Raphael and Natty are sitting there talking, and he looks at his dad, and he's just like, gosh, he's just like, Fred Astaire. It's just so easy for him, or something like that. It's a line where he's just talking about this love that his dad has, and it's just there, and it's as much a part of him as his name is. It's just this ever present part, and it's just it was just a really touching expression of a way to kind of say that about him.
Well, and that leads to, as we start sort of checking off the relationships that are at work in this film, that leads obviously to the second kind of romantic relationship, which is Raphael and his efforts to make sense of his romantic relationships is, that with his ex-wife and that with Natty, which is his current and love interest. And they, he's really struggling. And I think so much of that struggle is, it's pretty easy to relate to, and that I think we're just, in terms of this film as a reflection of kind of the marriage economy around the world, when you hit a certain age and you start having these sorts of challenges and wanting to feel like you need to drop out. This is a story of his, Raphael's kind of midlife crisis, as much as trying to figure out the rest of the pieces of his business. He is looking at his mother and father and trying to figure out why they have it so good, even in the face of such struggle. And he has such struggle, even in the face of other things that are going really well. And that conflict and that contrast, I think, makes him a much more interesting character. And of course, because it's that hunky Ricardo Darín, he is, I'm just love watching everything he does on screen, but it makes, watching him struggle to sort of grow up at middle age is, it was really fun.
Well, and I wrote this note down that I thought it was interesting because he is largely kind of an unlikable character in the start of this. And I was like, gosh, he doesn't really have any save the cat moments, but still he's so endearing. And I was like, it must be the power of Ricardo, because I think we're both like, why have we not watched this actor before? He's really just engrossing to watch. But then I'm like, well, you know what? They do have that really smart setup at the beginning of Raphael and his friend Juan Carlos as the kind of the little Zorro pair. And they're getting beat up by the bigger kids who are taking their ball and just being bullies. And then these two kind of adopt this kind of, righting the wrongs sort of thing with the Zorro thing and beating up, throwing rocks at the bad guys and popping their ball with a swash of their sword and everything, and being rescued by their mom. And it was really cute. And I think it set up the whole beginning nicely. And it kind of was a save the cat. You get this sense of this was who he was as a kid. He was this dreamer. He had, he had friends. He was struggling because he had these bad guys out there who were bullying him and stuff. But, there was friendship. There was this passion for life. There was this strength in family. There were a lot of these great elements. And then that fantastic cut that you get where they kind of push in on the young Raphael as, his mom offers the boys some butter cookies. You push it on the boy's eyes, and then you cut. It's this hard cut to Ricardo Darín, and you're looking at him. His eyes are kind of baggy. He's smoking, so you got this smoke kind of wafting past them, and this just dull sound of the TV in the background. It's like all of the life just instantly gets sucked out of the movie, and you're just like, this is where he is now. I was like, that was such a great cut. I loved it.
And that is the sort of character. I don't know, the character payoff, right, is that, through the course of this movie, he has to figure out how to be a 10-year-old again. And he is crushed under the weight of familial responsibility, right? I mean, not just in the relationships he's struggled with, his ex-wife and his daughter now, and this new relationship that, she wants to settle down and he's not committing, but also the restaurant. You can tell, I mean, he has a lot of responsibility and guilt about his feelings about the restaurant. He wants to love it. He wants it to have been as successful as it was, clearly, for his father and mother when they ran it. And now it's a business that is kind of running away with itself. He struggles with debt and creditors, and all of these things have caused him to forget that, deep inside there is a little Zorro.
And it's funny that you bring Juan Carlos back when he's older, in the grown-up part of the story. And it's kind of, that's an element of the story that I think I mostly enjoy. But there's an element toward the end where he pops up like he's pretending to be the priest. And for me, that was the one moment where I'm like, I feel like all of a sudden this is like Rowan Atkinson popping up in 4 Weddings and a Funeral. And yes, that was more of a romantic comedy. This one feels much more of like a drama with some elements of romance and comedy throughout. But that comedy seemed a little too much for me. But I do think I liked Juan Carlos for the most part. His character in the film is kind of a peculiar addition, but I think as I kind of watched, I'm like, yeah, but he kind of represents those elements that Raphael had as a kid and had since lost touch with. And so I think for the most part, I kind of like him, although it was kind of a strange little bit for me.
I'm gratified that you're as non-committal as you sound, because this was a part I really struggled with too, and probably it sounds like more than you did. I felt like his introduction to the film was weak. It was on a gag, like he was trying to play up his acting, and he came in as an undercover police officer, and he was said there's a problem with your kitchen. He's trying to introduce this element of threat, and then, oh no, it's really me. But they haven't seen each other in so long that Raphael barely even recognizes Juan Carlos. And then I think the strength of what Juan Carlos, the character, brings is he allows Raphael to get in touch with the youthful part, right? And he also becomes another interesting role model. Their conversation as they're walking late one night, and he hears the story of Juan Carlos's, as he lost his family. I struggled with whether or not I should believe that. Right, because everything else about Juan Carlos is on the verge of a lie, right? I mean, he's an actor, but it turns out he's not, a terribly successful actor. He comes in, every time we see him, he's playing a role, he's doing something else. And so I wasn't sure whether to trust him. And then we get this incredibly powerful moment where he's talking about how he just woke up from grief, and that ends up being an incredibly well-written scene. It's a beautifully well-written sort of speech from him, where he gets to talk about what it was like to lose his family and then to wake up. And I was torn with whether or not I felt like it was real or not. But the thing that really pushed me over the edge to sort of not liking Juan Carlos's role is when he became that weirdo kind of stalker and tried to make a move on Natty. I didn't understand that. It was like I felt like the film either wanted to have that conflict and didn't push it far enough, or they weren't committed enough to it and shouldn't have had it in there at all. That Juan Carlos, we had enough that Raphael was going through, and having Juan Carlos come in, an old friend, rebuilding a relationship and try to take his girl, too much.
Well, and that was a question I think that Ben Lott asked us over on Slack, because I was thinking about that, and it's interesting. Was he being honest when he said he loved her, or was it another of his lies, possibly designed to get Raphael to realize how much he actually values Natty? And that was an interesting. It's an interesting question, and I think my take on Juan Carlos wasn't that there was so much like lies and kind of disguising things and stuff like that. It was just, he was definitely just more of a goofy character, and I appreciated him. I guess what I thought of that scene when he and it was a very funny scene, I will say, despite anything, I just love the fact that he was a background actor in this whole thing.
That was a great highlight in this film. That was amazing.
And the timing was so perfect, because the way he says it, and then they're rolling, and he just immediately jumps into his silent laughing, and
well, and
it was so perfectly timed.
Yeah, I mean, it was really perfect. And if you haven't watched the film yet, please go watch it. And I'll put the link to the copy that the guy posted for Patty on YouTube.
Yeah, there you go.
It's great. Works great. It's a great version of the film.
It'll get you through it.
It will get you through it. And I think that's an example where I think Eduardo Blanco, played Juan Carlos, really shines. Like, he really shines. But I couldn't shake the fact that he just felt more often than not like a preening, self-conscious pretender, and somebody who was not comfortable in the choices that he'd made. And so he had these stories that he'd sort of built up around himself. And that didn't match the sensitive moments for me. That didn't match when I really wanted to believe him. It's like they set up that he was a character that was not believable.
And see, that's interesting, because I didn't see that at all. I saw it as this guy who was pretty much kind of honest about everything in his life, where he had hit this point where, some awful stuff had happened to him. And he's like, you know what? I have nothing else to lose. I'm just going to be honest and straightforward about everything, and I'm going to become an actor. And I think for me, like, I kind of bought into everything he did. And so to that end, the whole bit with Natty, I kind of bought into it. And I think it was just one of those things where I don't know if he was just not thinking things through, perhaps, but I bought into him actually saying, you know what, I do kind of like her. I fell for her because you had a heart attack. You were out for this huge period of time, and she and I developed this relationship. I don't think she did at all, but I think he developed it, and I think he was just in this place, like I said, where he just was being honest about everything. And I don't think it was until afterward that he realized, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Okay,
this is a question that comes from not having watched the film 1,000 times. How long was he out, Raphael?
I gathered it was at least a week or so. I don't know.
All right. Me too. To that end, I did not believe that they would be able to build that kind of relationship, Juan Carlos and Natty, that quickly. I mean, I guess maybe they could. Like, she was already kind of second guessing things, and we do have that scene where Raphael tells her, "I want to drop out and move to Mexico," and she, I think, misinterprets that. Well, he doesn't deliver it very well.
Well, and I think that, again, Juan Carlos is reading a lot more into the relationship and the time that the two of them spent in the hospital waiting for Raphael to kind of come to and get out of his whole, kind of the whole heart attack situation. I felt like they developed this kind of kinship because they were both waiting for Raphael. But Juan Carlos, in his loss and his pain of his own life, saw something in Natty that he was missing, and kind of developed this relationship in his head that was stronger than she ever would have thought it was. Like, I think in her head, she only ever thought it was just a friendship that had developed because of their connection.
That's so funny. I don't feel like the film communicated that to me. I feel like...
It's just a reading, so I mean, it's hard to say. I'm curious now to rewatch it and kind of get an interpretation again of all of that.
Yeah, totally. That's fascinating. So that is one of those relationships that I think really, I struggled with, was the relationships with Juan Carlos. But I have to say, Eduardo Blanco is so good. Like, when he's on, he is so funny. I just wish the puzzle piece of his character fit better. Another real highlight for me is Natty, played by Natalia Verbicki. Her relationships, right? We have her relationship with Raphael, which is a struggle. We have her relationship, Natty's relationship with Vicky, the daughter, which is, I think a highlight in terms of a step relationship. Like, they have such a really nice sort of loving demeanor. And so, but I think she plays such the perfect foil for the audience to say, Raphael, you dumbass. Like, she is amazing. Go hang with her. She's perfect.
And they treat her really well in the film. I mean, the writers do. That moment that she has with him when she's kind of breaking it off with him, And it's so painful because Raphael is so lost in himself that he doesn't think about what he's saying and stuff. And it's not until much later when he realizes, and he says in that scene when they're talking, he's just like, when I was saying all that, I didn't mean that we shouldn't be together and stuff. And it's just like, you're an idiot, dude, because you just clearly aren't hearing yourself. But the way that she takes all that, it's just like, you know what, I deserve more. And her whole thing was just so, kind of, she was done. She's just being true to herself. And it was just a really nice moment between the two of them. And I'm like, but she was just so good. And she's like, you know what? You never played games. You were just not the man that I thought you were, but I'm worth it. And that's that. That was really just touching and powerful. And she brought it to the table there, and it was great. And then that made for such a great payoff when he shows up at her place, in the rain after terrifying her into thinking that he's a stalker. But then that great shot of him as he's kind of confessing his undying love for her in the little video monitor.
That was
wonderful.
Amazing. That was amazing because that little resolution, you already brought up Four Weddings and a Funeral, and it could have had the sort of saccharine nature of, Notting Hill or something like that, right? I mean, it really could have gone that direction. Here he is, he's pleading his case in the monitor, and the guard, doorman is sitting there, weighing in, right? He's like editorializing. I think he really is serious. I think he's really,
yeah, right.
but it's only toward the end that you realize she can't see him, and the camera has not cut away from this little phone screen the entire monologue here, and so when she comes, when he says, I no response, and he kind of backs up and he puts his hand on his head, and she practically knocks him down the stairs, but we don't see anything because it never cuts away from that screen. I wanted to shout, like that was a great reward for that scene, and then it's over. They don't cut back to more nonsense.
Right. Yeah.
Perfect.
No, it's done so well. That's something that I think the director here, Juan José Campanella, I think it's Campanella, I think is how you say it. He has a real strong sense of camera placement and where to put it and how to move it and when to let it sit. And this was a great moment showing that. And it was such a refreshing moment to see that scene play out like that, because it was touching, and it was rewarding because of the way that he gave it to us.
Such patience. Yeah. Such patience. Did you feel midlife crisis-y after watching this? Did this make you reflect on your own place in the world and where you're going?
I feel like it didn't, but that's okay because I don't feel like I'm in quite the same situation. But something else that I was going to say though about him, and especially as this midlife crisis, that I thought was so interesting is this is a really interesting film as we were talking about relationships, looking at like the past and the present and the future. And I found it really interesting that in this particular film, well, in a lot of films you see like this, you see these people with these broken relationships, and there's that person that they kind of connect with, and it's a new person that kind of helps them move forward, right? Mm-hmm. It's like that new romance. I loved that this film was about these two people who struggle with their, it's really just Raphael struggling, but they end up with the women that they had been with from the beginning.
Oh,
I was
yes.
like, that was a really nice twist where it's like, Nino, we know he's going to end up with her. It's just this nice moment to see him kind of rekindling that love. But Raphael, it's like, he kind of messes everything up with Natty and then fixes it and ends up back with Natty. And I'm like, that was just so nice. I liked seeing all of this where it's like, they return to their pasts and their presents to kind of help move their future forward. I was like, it was such a nice change.
Well, and that's not to belabor Juan Carlos's role, but that's sort of what I saw him as. He was the ghost of Christmas past, right? I mean, he's like showing you where you were. But interesting that you mentioned that, the midlife crisis. We sort of pick up in Raphael's midlife crisis, I don't know, like toward the middle or end of it, like he's already with the younger woman, right? Like his relationship with the midlife crisis woman is already on the ropes, right? We already know that he's a basket case with his ex-wife, the mother of his daughter, but he's trying to hold his life together after he already midlife crisised himself into this place. Now, to that point, the fact that the resolution of the movie is such that he is able to resolve his relationship with this woman, that's the lesson that he learns, and that there's a satisfying ending that doesn't introduce some new, even younger model. That would have been grody. It's satisfying.
For a minute there, I was like, is he going to reconnect with his ex? And I wasn't quite sure if I was happy with that direction, because he had that moment where he goes to visit her and he kind of grabs her like not grabs her, but he kind of puts his hands on her like, she's his lover again. And I was like, oh boy, I don't know if I'm sure about this. But then her reaction was perfect. I'm like, oh wait, okay, no. I was misreading it, but really is because he was misreading everything, and just kind of feeling that whole sense of loss and everything. I really liked that almost surprise twist that they had there.
You found a quote from our fair director talking about Nino and his own father.
I had read somewhere and I couldn't find it, but I thought I read that he partly based Nino on his kind of his relationship with his father, which I thought was interesting. Along with this quote, which kind of emphasizes his relationship with his mother, too. I am very obsessed with old age. I was looking for a word, intrigued. No, it's more than that, because I'm afraid of it. I'm very afraid of it, and I really think that it's so unfair. Perhaps I've been trained by my mother, who hated to grow old and decided to get Alzheimer's so she could avoid it. At least that's my theory. She couldn't bring herself to, of course, harm herself, but she was not having a good time. Also, when you get to the age where you see your parents age, it's not an easy thing. And I'm really obsessed too, in the sense that I like to have old people have a good time, as good as it possibly can get in the circumstances. I thought that was kind of an interesting quote about, what he sees in age and this fear of aging. And, but also there's this great potential joy that you can still have when you're aging. And I think you see that in both the parents that we have here, Nino and Norma.
Let's do the deep scene dive, Andy.
Let's do it.
We're about 57 minutes into the film. The restaurant is busy. Nino is on the phone in the back. He is trying to invite people to his coming wedding. Raphael is demonstrating, he's demonstrating the way they cook a particular pasta in a giant cheese log, which is amazing.
I know. I sure wanted that.
Wow. And he's doing this for the group of sort of the buyers, the attorneys and the buyers, the people who are going to buy his restaurant. There is absolute chaos in the kitchen. And, you have it starting at about a minute in. I'm sorry. I'm thinking about pasta right now. And that's throwing me off. It starts at about an hour in, runs from an hour to about an hour to hour 2:30. Why is this scene? This was funny because when we choose these deep scene dives, we kind of throw out our favorite scenes, and this was the one that you and I had in common on our lists. Why was this one on your list?
I felt like this was, this is right after Nino proposes to Norma, and we get that really touching scene, and this is kind of setting the wheels in motion, right? We got this deal now. We already had Raphael have a heart attack and tell his dad that he didn't want to do this restaurant anymore, and so all the wheels are in motion. He's trying to sell the restaurant, and his dad is trying to get the wedding organized. And so this is just kind of this big moment where it's like everybody's doing everything all in this restaurant. You've got Raphael, he's prepping this great meal that you talked about for these buyers and kind of talking to them about it. You have Nino on the phone talking to a variety of people about just inviting them to the wedding. And it's an interesting blend, I felt, of kind of pushing the story forward, but also allowing for quite a bit of comedy, because you have Raphael's bit of the story is really more focused on driving things forward, And Nino and his phone calls are really just kind of comedy as to how out of touch he is. So it's a really interesting blend. And then paired with the way that the camera was dancing around and stuff, it just made for kind of a really interesting scene, I felt.
Really, and you say the camera was dancing around. It really was, and it was not. This wasn't a single shot, but there were some really long shots in here, right, where you have just some great timing of Raphael walking, out of the scene, and the camera here it pulls back, and it's already on Nino, and Nino is asking, can he come to the thing? Is he alive? He's finding that all these people that he knew for years and years ago are either in hospitals, in prisons, or dead, and that ends up being sort of a deflating element. That comedy is just fantastic, and it ends on something has gone on in the kitchen with Marchioli the chef and Nacho the moron, and somebody has dropped something, and there's a third-degree burn or something or other. I'm not quite sure how it played out, but all this is going on, backstage while he's trying to hold together the front of house, and his father is completely oblivious. It is perfect, and it's kind of an isolated scene, and it's perfectly placed right in the middle of the film. That it's this sort of comic high point that breaks up the sort of heavier questions.
And it's structured interestingly because it really is kind of like the first half of it gives us the setup for it, where we really see. It sets us up with seeing Nino on the phone, and we get that. And then we kind of join Raphael as he's having this conversation and showing these restaurant buyers this recipe and talking to them and talking with the chef. That becomes like this really heavy cutting, like back and forth, cut, as we're cut from Raphael to the buyer, to the chef, to the buyer, to the chef, as they really have this conversation. Mm-hmm. That's like just straightforward, regular old filmmaking. And so it fits because that is kind of part of the story that is just pushing us into the next chapter for that element of the story where we see him really kind of selling this restaurant. But then you get into that dance that you were talking about, which it's so nicely done, where as we wrap up with Raphael, it's almost like he steps out of frame, and then the camera goes right there to Nino, who happens to be right behind him. And it felt very much like a play, because a play, it's one of those moments where you have multiple people doing things on screen, and, the light changes, and all of a sudden this other person's the point of focus. And the other person's still there, kind of, not quite as bright anymore, but they're still kind of doing their thing on the phone, but you're now following Raphael, and then that light dims, and then you're on Nino again. And it's fun the way that they do that, and it felt very much like a play. But you're right, that shot lasts for almost the full minute, that toward the end of the shot. It's like the way they edit it, there's like 18 shots in this whole 2.5 minute chunk that we're looking at here. And the last two shots, it really is almost like the last half of it. And then you just happen to cut away to one final hit of Nino as he's on that final phone call, and he's just like, just tell me, is he alive? And it was just a great little comedy hit that we end with. There's a weird cut like right before it. And I was like wondering, I wonder if they just cut because they just needed to get a better take of that or what. But all in all, it just was a really intriguing scene that did both its job of pushing the story forward as far as selling the restaurant, and then the comedy of inviting the guests, because that's like neither here nor there as far as the momentum of getting us to the wedding. It's just kind of a fun thing of him making these phone calls. It didn't have to happen. It's really there just purely for the comedy. And so I felt like that the writers, Juan José Campanella and Fernando Castells, did a really good job of finding the balance in here, and then directing and editing and getting all the actors to do the job.
Here's another thing that I think they did really well is they brought in Marchioli, the chef, to be introduced to the buyers. And there is such a feeling of great exuberance and excitement and enthusiasm about the whole thing, right? He's here, he's telling them that he's pure Italian from, he's straight up from Southern. He's Southern Italian, Southern Buenos Aires.
Right.
and And I love that moment. It's so fantastic. And you're kind of on cloud nine for them because it feels like now that Raphael has come to terms with the fact that he's selling the restaurant, and he and his father have had the conversation. They're selling the restaurant. Sell the restaurant, he says. You don't need this. Sell the restaurant. He sells the restaurant, and we find out not too far after this scene, after this real high that selling the restaurant was the right decision, that in fact everybody's going to be fired, and that the chef in fact says he sort of preempts it. He says, if you're gone, I'm gone, and that ends up being for me that hit me as a point of great sadness that just when you think he's got his stuff together, he ends up letting everybody down who had jobs in a struggling economy, and here he is just looking selfish again.
That was a really kind of an interesting moment to see, because you definitely had developed this loose kind of relationship with some of the people in the restaurant, and then that moment hits when, in this scene, when we find out that these guys who are buying the place are like, they're going to make an offer on Thursday. And
yeah.
He's just like, oh, that quick? Like, he's just so not prepared for all of this. He's just kind of in this place after his heart attack where he's just like, I just got to make these decisions and move forward, without realizing that, the ball is rolling much faster outside of his little world, right?
Exactly.
And you get to that later scene where he's at that table, and he learns that everybody else is pretty much going to be let go right away. And it really is heartbreaking, because you have gotten to know these people, and as kind of annoying as Nacho is, there's something endearing about him. And so it's nicely done how it sets up this world for you, and you feel just as much like the rug's pulled out under your feet as it has been under Raphael's.
Much of the credit to how this thing is pulled together after the script and direction goes to, as you already mentioned, Daniel Schulman, the behind the camera, and Camillo Antolini for editing. Once again, a terrific pair.
They do a great job here. I think throughout the cinematography just works really nicely. I like seeing how Campanella really works with his camera throughout. At least the few films that I've seen of his.
Yeah.
Really nice stuff.
You want to talk more detail about him now? We want to jump out of this, or do you have more to say about the deep scene dive?
I will say one moment or one thing as far as the music goes. Angel Ijaramendi, the music in here throughout the film, it's a nice tone. Like, there's like kind of marching stuff. There's some moments that feel very dreamy and elegiac and romantic. Overall, I liked it. But in this sequence, I found it so funny, because as I went back and rewatched it and just kind of focused on the different elements, the music, it is kind of just this diegetic music, like something that would be playing in the background in an Italian restaurant. But all I could think of was the cheese sketch in Monty Python does with that shut that bloody bazooki off. It sounds like that kind of annoying music that you'd have in the background, that if it turns up another notch, you're like, oh, I can't stand this anymore.
There were some weird pairings of music to scene, like the opening scene where the bullies are beating up on the kids, right? That's played to a patriotic march,
right,
which was very strange. This scene, it's like there is some sort of calliope or balalaika or something going on in the background that really is just comical. I don't know. I don't know how intentional that was. Some of it seemed cultural. Some of it seemed like I just didn't get the joke. But largely, I think the music was fine. It just didn't always necessarily fit what I was watching.
Yeah. It was kind of odd. It felt nice, but I would say that I agree with you, though.
Juan José Campanella as director. We haven't talked as much about him. I don't think we've ever talked about him on the show, right?
I don't think so. I really don't. He hasn't done a lot of English language films. He did a few in his early days in the 90s, 2 American films. He did The Boy Who Cried Bitch and Love Walked In, neither of which I had ever heard of before. But then he'd done a lot of TV, and that's the one thing, like, you look at the TV work that he's done here in the States, and it's like, wow, he has really done a lot of TV. And it's kind of interesting to kind of look at his career. I mean, he's from Argentina who actually started studying to be an engineer. And I thought this was funny. He dropped out in 1980 after just 4 years at the university. He later remarked that the decisive factor for the decision was watching All That Jazz on the very day he was going to apply for his 5th year. And he realized that that's what he wanted to do. And he signed up for NYU's Tisch School of the Arts and went off to New York to study film. And his first feature film was in 1984. It was a documentary with Eduardo Blanco, who has been in 5 of his films. And he co-wrote that with Fernando Castells, who he's been working with on and off for quite a while. And but I think then he's kind of gone back and forth between Argentina, where he's done some features, and a lot of just kind of American TV and stuff.
And it's not small TV either. I mean, we're talking about like starting with Strangers with Candy and Law and Order SVU and House and Halt and Catch Fire. I mean, he's got his name behind major TV properties.
Yeah, even an episode of 30 Rock.
Yeah.
I think it's funny looking back on his early stuff. He actually did an episode of the CBS School Break Special, which I totally remember those from when I was a kid.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't. The School Break Special was. I remember Schoolhouse Rock, and I remember what was the NBC School Break equivalent?
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of. The after school
special.
Not the school break
School
special.
Break Special is for the kids who are playing hooky. They're like, they come home. Yeah, it's totally different. You don't want to hang out with those kids.
No, they're rough.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
I think Campanella definitely has developed a certain language with his the way that he tells his stories. And he's had a lot of practice with all the TV and everything. And he's done... His first film in Argentina was in 1999. He did El Mismo Amor, La Misma Lluvia, and with Ricardo and Eduardo. And I think that, he's just kind of been going from there. And then this is his second Argentine film. And then he's done a couple more. And we're going to be talking about another one of those here next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Other cast in this that were not in the scene. We mentioned Norma Belvedere, but we did not talk about just how terrific an actress she is and how well considered she is in Argentina.
Yeah, she really is almost like a national treasure. She's just been around for a long time and has done some really fantastic performances. She was in The Official Story, which is a film that won. She won Best Actress at Cannes for her performance in that, and actually she acted with Hector Altiero, who plays Nino. She acted with him in that film. That actually was the first film that Argentina won for at the Oscars for Best Foreign Language Film. And I mean, she's been in a lot of stuff. Her presence here as this woman with Alzheimer's, I just it was really touching.
Yeah. Oh, she was amazing. And I think you just watch the final scene to see just how great she is, what she communicates while she's standing between these two men, the look of just kind of panic and fear on her face, and how quickly it changes to that sort of vaudeville smile. It's oh my God, I can't get enough of it. I really can't get enough of it. She's just amazing. She's amazing. How did it do at award season?
This was received really well. It was nominated it had 34 wins and 11 other nominations at the Argentinian Film Critics Association Awards. They're big ones down there. It was like, a Return of the King type of thing. It had 12 nominations, which is just huge. And of that, 8 wins. It won for Best Film, Best Director, Best Actor, Ricardo Darín, Best Supporting Actor, Eduardo Blanco, Best Supporting Actress, Norma Alejandro, Best New Actress, Claudia Fontan, who played Sandra, Darín's wife, his ex-wife, Best Original Screenplay, and Best Editing. And then the other 4 nominations were for Best Supporting Actor, Hector Alterio, who lost to Blanco. I'm kind of torn between those two. I almost feel like I would prefer seeing Hector have taken that Supporting Actor award. I'm not quite sure.
Probably.
And maybe it's just because they're the 2 scenes, like one when he's talking to his son about the restaurant and telling him to sell it and everything. His monologue there is so touching.
Yeah.
It just hit me. And then when he proposes, I mean, he just has scene after scene where I just was really mesmerized by him. But I can see, Eduardo is kind of the fun one and everything. I guess I can see why he'd get it.
Yeah, but I'm already on the fence on Eduardo.
Yeah.
Just the whole part was so bad. I mean, you can't say the same thing about Nino. He's just, he was the rock, the anchor, Andy.
He really is. Yes, really is. Also was nominated for Best Cinematography. It lost to a film called La Ciénaga. Best Art Direction, they lost to La Fuga, another film with Ricardo Darín that came out the same year. And Best Music lost to a film called Gangs from Rosario. Over here at the Oscars, it was nominated for Best Foreign Language Film, but it lost to the Bosnian film No Man's Land. And this was the year that Amelie was nominated, and I still would pick Amelie over either of those.
Yeah.
But what are you going to do? But it was nice to see that of the 6 nominations that Ricardo did receive, he did win 5 of them. So that made me happy.
This was an original property, and but it feels so much like it should be or should have been made into a remake.
Well, it was optioned because, I mean, this was popular. It was a really touching story. I think people would love to see it. Somebody here in the States did option it, but they ended up losing interest, which I would say is probably for the best considering who they were looking at bringing on board.
Who was that?
Oh, Pete, my favorite actor, Adam Sandler.
Jesus.
I can't.
Who? Would he be playing? I can't imagine him as either one. I guess I can imagine him as Juan Carlos, effectively Juan Carlos character, but please don't make him Raphael.
I don't think that Adam Sandler would do it unless he was playing the Raphael role, which means that it would probably be,
Yeah.
I don't know who would play the Juan Carlos role. It's probably what's his name who played the animal. What's that guy's name? I'm blanking on his name.
What? Who played the
Rob
animal?
Schneider.
Oh, yes.
Rob
Oh, God, no. Yeah, I totally blanked that out. You're right. It would be Rob Schneider. Oh, man, this is giving me nightmares.
It's awful.
The problem with Adam Sandler, if you'll allow me, is that I think Adam Sandler is capable of truly great work. I just think he can't channel that. Like, he might stumble into it, but that's not his natural space, and he can't ever recall, how did I get here? He just can't do it.
Do you say that because you feel like he actually has accidentally stumbled into it before?
I feel like the cobbler was on the verge, and also what was that other one that I actually did like? Where he was serious.
Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah. Punch Drunk Love. I don't think you like that one at all.
No.
Because
I don't. I know PTA fans love it, but I still hate it.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. Too bad.
Well, I did like what Campanella said. He said, they won't ruin it because the movie is already made. They'll make a different version of it. It's like a different version of Hamlet. How does Shakespeare feel about Hamlet in space? So I think that would be fun to see what they would do with it. Also, I'm a big fan of Scent of a Woman, the Italian version, the original. But also I find some pleasant things in the American version. It's not the great experience that the Italian version was, but I don't think that it ruined my Italian experience of it. I think that's a very diplomatic way to appreciate an Adam Sandler remake of his film.
Oh, what about Bulletproof, man? We could have been talking about Bulletproof.
Disneyland. That's like the only thing I remember from that movie. Oh,
I'm proud that you remember even that. Oh, man.
Yeah. I don't know what that says about me.
How did it do at the box office?
Well, Campanella's film cost $2 million to make, which is about 2.7 in today's dollars. Now, I couldn't find if that was 2 million in Argentine pesos or in US dollars, but the exchange rate in 2001 was actually so close that it really shouldn't matter too much. The movie opened in Argentina on August 16th, 2001, and like Darin's last film, was a critical and commercial success. It eventually opened in the US on March 22nd, 2002, interestingly, a full month ahead of Nine Queens, Darin's last film that we discussed last week, which, as you may remember, opened a full year before this one did in Argentina. So anyway, I don't know what that says, but you got to love the US release market of foreign films. Anyway, the movie did open here on 6 screens opposite Blade 2 and Sorority Boys, as well as the 20th anniversary re-release of E.T. It did go on to make about $625,000 here in the States and about $7.9 million internationally, making a total in today's dollars of $11.7 million. That gave the film an adjusted profit per finished minute of $73,000. Not quite as successful as Nine Queens, but still a success.
That lines up about with how I feel about it. So in terms of Pete's emotional dollar quotient,
I really ended up kind of loving this film. I think it hit me in all the right ways emotionally. And I feel like this is one that if I go back and revisit, my issues that I had with some of those small things with Juan Carlos are going to get smaller and smaller, because I just feel like it was just such a delight to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm probably too hard on it, and I'm probably overthinking, too much about I have forgiven films just like this for much, much more.
Sure,
and so I feel like I just need to watch it again and let go of some of that stuff, because I think Eduardo Blanco is really great. I just think I was too much in my head probably when I watched it. So let's see how it goes when we rank it, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and you can see our list of films. You can also swipe over in your show notes. You know how it works. Tap the word Flickchart. Just tap it and it'll take you right over to the Flickchart page for this movie where you can add it to your list. Where do we start?
We're starting it off with Son of the Bride or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
That is a really unfortunate block.
Kicking it off with the Oh Brother block.
Yeah. It's really unfortunate because I feel like I ended up, it ended up ranking higher just because it didn't get that block. It just didn't get that block. It would not have passed that block, I don't think. I think I'm
actually saying Son of the Bride here.
Really?
Yeah, I am.
What is it that's pushing you over the edge? You hungover?
I just felt like, yeah, I'm drunk, Pete. No, I just feel like the emotional honesty of the story, I really connected with it. And I really find Oh Brother completely enjoyable. It's a very delightful Coen Brothers film. It's kind of just that goofy Coen fun. But I think if I'm looking at something that's actually going to hit me more at the emotional core, it's going to be Son of the Bride.
Andy, you magnificent genius. I think I'm going to give it to you out of just straight up maniacal curiosity. Whatever is going to happen next.
Well, there you go. All right, Son of the Bride or Shaun of the Dead?
Shaun of the Dead.
Ooh, it's the blank of the blank battle.
Yeah. It's definitely Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, Shaun of the Dead. Yeah. Son of the Bride or Beverly Hills Cop? I will say Son of the Bride.
Son of the Bride.
Son of the Bride or Ronin?
Well, see, of course, I'm going to say Ronin. I have to say Ronin. I can say nothing but Ronin.
I know, and I actually feel like here I agree with you. I'm going to say Ronin. I know, got your heart rate up a bit there.
You say it like that.
Son of the Bride or The Big Lebowski?
Son of the Bride.
I'll say Son of the Bride. It's interesting. I don't know what it is, because Ronin, I think I could have given the same argument that I gave with Oh Brother and now Big Lebowski, but I don't know. I guess that just felt like maybe it's just the dramatic strength of them. I don't know, but anyway, Son of the Bride takes it here. Son of the Bride or For a Few Dollars More?
Son of the Bride or For a Few Dollars More? Andy, I can't remember which one was my favorite of the three.
Jeez. Let's see. A Fistful of Dollars is. I think your favorite was For a Few Dollars More.
Yeah. Then I vote A Few Dollars More.
Fistful of Dollars was the remake of Yojimbo.
Yes.
And For a few dollars more, that's the one where he puts the stovepipe thing under his shirt, and the guy, is, yeah.
Yes. No, I'm gonna have to say, Andy. I'm gonna say Son of the Bride.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a little torn here. I feel like I am going to say for a few dollars more. I'll give you Son of the Bride. I'll give you Son of the Bride.
All right.
Son of the Bride or City of God.
City of God.
City of God.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look at that. Son of the Bride hits 106 out of 324.
106 out of 324. That's about right.
Yeah. That's a pretty fair spot for it. That's a very fair spot.
What did this do for your private for the Nelson private collection?
Shh, don't tell anybody. For my personal flick chart, this ended up at 526 out of 3863, which is about 86%. So it moved up pretty well for me. This is one that I definitely feel like I will watch again.
Because this didn't run into things like Ronin and the Oh Brother block, it ended up at, it wouldn't have hit Ronin. It's much higher on my list. This ended up at 311 out of 1,001 movies for me. So that puts it right around that sort of 69%, which I guess that's a little bit lower than where we are, but feels pretty good.
Interesting.
Yeah. No, this was a fun film. This is the Nine Queens I've recommended to a number of people, and the results have come back mixed. I've been surprised that people come back saying, "Yeah, that was good. I figured it out." Like that somehow they figured it out, and therefore it wasn't interesting anymore. This is one that I don't feel it's going to be as easy to say, I figured it out, because it's not that kind of a movie. You just have to kind of engage with these characters and see if you build a relationship with them. And I'm actually, especially after our conversation, I'm eager to go back and check it out again.
What did it do for your Letterboxd rating?
It stands right now at a hard 4 with a heart, and I think that may be a little bit low. It may need to be a 4.5. What about you? Yeah,
mine's 4.5 and a like. I really I feel like if it wasn't for the one moment of Juan Carlos as the priest, it's like it could have been a 5, but I'm torn still. Again, it's one of those things where I'm like, it may not bother me on other later viewings. It might be fine. So I don't know, but 4.5 I feel like is a very fair score for it.
I think, obviously according to the rules that are emblazoned in gold in the headquarters of the Next Reel Broadcasting Center, it defers to the higher score, I believe, right?
No, it's just it's an average, so 4.25.
But you can't do that on Letterboxd.
It averages out, and you round, and it ends up at 4.5.
That's what I mean. Like it just it defers. So I feel okay leaving mine as a 4, knowing that it's going to end up at a 4.5.
Well, there you go.
Okay, where do we go from here? You already teased it.
I did. Juan José Campanella did return to work with Ricardo Darín a number of times. He worked with him 4 times. This was the second film they worked on together. We're skipping the third, and we're going straight to the fourth, which is the 2009 film The Secret in Their Eyes. El secreto en sus ojos.
Now, I think that one, you've seen the remake too?
Yes, I watched both of them this past weekend.
I'm eager to hear how they compared to one another. Spoiler, I already know.
Well, anyone in our Slack, any of our Patreon supporters who are over on Slack, they probably know. And if you're following me on Letterboxd, you know what I thought of the remake at least.
You were thrilled by it. Thrilled, I tell you. You has to see it.
Oh, wow.
Yes. This has been a treat, Andrew. As always, here we are halfway through our Ricardo Darín series, and we're 2 for 2.
Yes, we are.
Man.
Yes, we are. I mean, we didn't even say enough of just about how good he is. But I mean, and actually this speaks to how brilliant he is. The scene when he's reading the poem that his daughter wrote, just the way that it hits him.
Yeah.
That said, this is an actor worth watching.
Yep. Absolutely it is. So we can't wait to move into the next film next week because I think when the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Amazon giveth, Andrew.
As Amazon always doeth.
And this week, Amazon giveth a spread of reviews that is pretty shallow.
Yeah, quite a surprise. Only 35 reviews.
35 reviews, but no 1, 2, or 3 stars. Usually there's somebody who got the wrong format or the video wouldn't play or something. But this week, Andy, everybody is satisfied with both Amazon's performance and Ricardo Darin's.
That is a rarity.
That's amazing.
A true rarity.
It's amazing. Would you like to go first?
Sure, I will kick it off. I am going to be reading the review from Andy Orrick, who gave it 4 stars and says, excellent slice of life from Buenos Aires, 2001. Son of the Bride surprised me. I was leery of a maudlin look at Alzheimer's and its impact. You know, a standard movie of the week treatment. Instead, this is a great look at one family trying to survive in the economic maelstrom that is Argentina circa 2001. The tough economic conditions pressure Ricardo Darin's Rafael throughout the first third of the movie. It builds and builds to a crescendo. He spends the last hour plus trying to pick up the pieces. The movie never feels contrived or forced. The translation is crisp and not overwhelming. The sound quality is excellent. All of the dialogue can be heard, replete with that distinctive Argentinian accent. Although Darín is excellent here, I've got to think that this movie will long be remembered as Natalia Verbicki's stunning debut. Try keeping your eyes off this girl wherever she appears on the screen. Simply luminous.
You know, that's a really good point. We should do a series on her. I was looking up some other films that she's done. It's just pictures of her, and she does not look like this. She is clearly, just judging by stills alone, moved into some fantastic character work.
Yeah, and she's just, I mean, she's what, 42 now?
Yeah.
She brings so much power in the film, and she is a kind of a force to be reckoned with.
She's
in
amazing.
This particular film. Yeah.
Martini says it's a perfect balance of comedy and tragedy. With this 5-star review, the great acting of Alejandro Alterio and Darín is worth the effort of watching this alone. The wonderful story, a fairly fragile mix of several storylines, is a perfect example of how tragedy and comedy must be blended in just the right mix for real theatrical power. And that is that.
There you go.
Thanks.
Very positive reviews.
Very positive. I feel good, Andy. We should go. We should go write a movie.
Let's do it.
Thanks, Amazon.
It's hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
I was so excited for our big Star Trek film franchise series this season. All those movies adapted from Gene Roddenberry's original 1960s TV show.
As a huge fan, I know that you geeked out over analyzing the adaptations.
Absolutely. From the motion picture to the Kelvin timeline films, seeing the Enterprise crews on the big screen was a dream come true.
Our list of source material isn't just all books and plays. We have the original series in our list of source material. You can rent the episodes to watch and enjoy and support the show in the process.
For our Millennium Trilogy series, we covered films adapted from the original books that launched Lisbeth Salander, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest.
As much as I love Fincher's version, the original Swedish versions are the way to go. We also did our Die Hard series in season 7.
I can't believe Die Hard and Die Hard 2 were adaptations. 2 of the greatest action movies ever.
Well, one of them at least. The other is awfully fun, though. We revisited the classic Mary Poppins for our 1960s movie musical series. A spoonful of sugar always helps the medicine go down.
Old Boy was intense for our Park Chan-wook Vengeance trilogy, and East of Eden and Giant were highlights of our James Dean series.
And a fun time travel mind bender with Predestination to cap things off.
Find all the books behind these adaptations and more at thenextreel.com/originals.
Dive into the source material for your favorite movies. Check it out today, thenextreel.com/originals.